Thanks everyone for joining us. The next era of customer experience. We're going to spend the next round about 45 minutes covering the biggest takeaways from the Future of Service that was held in Sydney in May. We're going to cover the AI metrics that matter, talking to the return on investment. We're going to look at AI readiness and what it takes to embark on AI, how to do it successfully. And then we'll finalize it with where other organizations are seeing success. By the end of the session, you should have a really good idea of what's going to make you successful. If you're embarking on this journey, really welcome you and great place to start. I'm going to introduce us to our two amazing speakers. So Shane Kuswara is our Zendesk AI Partner Success. He's joining us from Sydney. And just as a bit of a background, Shane has worked at some of the innovators and disruptors of the software industry, like Google, Qualtrics, and is going to share some amazing recent AI trends across the CX market. So really looking forward to that. Welcome, Shane. And in addition to Shane, we have Alva Toison. So Alva is our Director of Operations at SuccessCX. And Alva has worked at customer service and CX industry for the past, I'm going to say 15 years, probably longer. He's supported CX teams for some of Australia's most recognisable brands, such as Optus, REA or realestate.com.au, Sportsbet, been around the Zendesk ecosystem for most of his time in the industry, and really excited to hear what Alva is seeing out in the industry in both Australia and New Zealand. So welcome to you both. Thanks, guys. So clearly becoming a core part of the future of customer service, but there's lots of things to consider. As a starting point, it would be great to open up the conversation about, I think, the Future of Service event that maybe many of you attended. The one that I was attending, so this did happen globally. The one that I attended was in Sydney in May, and it was really exciting. Just the ability that is coming out, the potential is amazing. So whilst it was hard to get away from the Success CX booth that we had there, we did talk with lots of customers in CX land and just get a feel for what is going on, what are people thinking about. Alva, starting with you, can you give us some of your key takeaways from those events and what you're seeing out there in customer land and in industry in general?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Paul. So it was a really packed day. Great to speak to a whole lot of customers and people from the industry in general. We had a really good fireside chat with Brendan from Petstock. The topic for that one was around keeping the human in AI-powered customer experience. We do have a recording of that. We'll make that available after today's webinar, and that'll be on the SuccessCX website. But there were a lot of things to go through to understand what the industry is doing and obviously what the Zendesk ecosystem is doing as well. But what we will try to do is condense that into what we foresee as our 6 key takeaways from that. So I think number one was around AI tools are important, but so is your sort of operating model as well. So while new AI capabilities are always popping up, the key recurring message is that technology alone doesn't deliver or won't deliver the outcomes that you're after on its own. So as an organization, you should be looking at focusing what your clear service ownership and governance looks like. We talk to a lot of customers around what governance means for them within their organization or within their function, around how AI plays a part in that. Continuous optimization, I think using and leveraging things like quality assurance, insights, what your iteration path for AI kind of looks like is important. And then at a high level, your change management, your workforce enablement. So how does your service roles kind of change as there's no longer that low hanging fruit? The idea is AI, it helps you scale up by design. It then also removes some of your low hanging fruit contact. So what does it look like when your agents are then managing more complex inquiries? What enablement's required? What capabilities do you need to build into your workforce in order to support that? And then changes in the industry is largely an operational transformation. So AI is the enabler in that rather than the headline, the only thing that's driving that. The other one, and the second one, was AI is no longer sort of the add-on, but it's core to your experience. So AI is becoming embedded in your day-to-day service operations. Now, depending on the source of where you're getting the data from. We've been attending a lot of industry events recently just to kind of get a bit of a feel for benchmarking. Where does ANZ sit in terms of contact centers and CX? And it's around about 7% of leaders are exploring AI in some shape or form within the contact center. The AI should be handling sort of the high volume, autonomous work while supporting your agents with insights and context. And this is all about scale and consistency of experience. The next one's around about the resolution qualities, the new North Star. So the future is essentially measured by fast, complete resolution, and with a lot less emphasis on like response time, ticket volume, and all those sorts of, not necessarily legacy metrics, but those are human agent led metrics. What does resolution quality look like for organizations? That is now the primary driver around building sort of trust, loyalty, cost efficiency, and things like that. There's always obviously been a lot of conversation around what does it then mean for my contact center model? And with AI being pushed to the front, what does that then mean for my human agents? And realistically, best model is hybrid, right? So what you're trying to do is move agents to more value add, high risk, emotional, complex inquiries that are coming through. And then that lets you have the AI agent filter out sort of those lower, like we talked about, lower hanging fruit that kind of comes through. Most organizations are looking at what their hybrid model looks like in terms of how they deliver that. Context is the main one. So context and clean foundations is the defining thing around what builds out your clever AI. Effective service, you need to make sure that you've got unified data, you understand your customer context. If you're looking at orchestration or pulling information from a different system, how does that work along your customer journey? Is it the right engagement to actually piece into your customer journey around AI? These are the things that you want to look at. Where there is fragmentation and where there's poor operational discipline or governance, that would then start to become blockers around what you're actually able to do within your AI agent, but also your agility in terms of how you respond and modify different workflows. And then the last key takeaway for us was around that timing. So obviously a lot of organizations are feeling that pressure around, hey, what are we doing with AI? How are we introducing AI into it? So obviously the pressure is real and there are a lot of conversations that are happening within organizations around that specifically. But I guess some of the key takeaways, and this is where kind of Zendesk can help here, is that waiting on AI can be a risk, but you don't have to start out with a grand necessary plan in order to do that. I think a lot of customers are actually seeing a lot of traction is testing and learning and a very specific strategy around how they actually build up and scale that. And we'll touch on that today. But yeah, essentially those were like our key 6 takeaways from that.
Nice one, Awa. Thanks so much. I love the winning model is the hybrid, and none of our customers want to reduce the quality of service by introducing some of these tools. And I think, as you said, focusing on first and foremost that low value stuff that can be really well supported by these tools is where a lot of the customers are starting, but also allowing that human in the loop as well where needed, where the high value perhaps or the more complex types of inquiries are coming in. So a lot to unpack there. But yeah, we're seeing, I think across the industries, there is seems to be a lot more volume, a lot more demand. And we know that the agents can be struggling. So reducing that routine low value queries can be the answer, just to lightening the load of the agent as well, whilst also supporting the agent in providing the operational SOPs and things. Excellent. All right. So we're coming up to the new financial year. Obviously, a lot of businesses are thinking about this. So we're really in an exciting space. We are. So Evelyn, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're going to put out a poll now just to see what the temperature is in terms of the audience. Really would love to get your thoughts on where you are in your AI journey. And so you'll see that shortly. And if we can get your responses, then we will come back to you, I think a little bit later, just to give you what those results look like. Right. Now let's switch over to Shane. And as I said, Shane is our Zendesk AI Partner Success Manager. Shane is going to talk a number of things with us today around how is moving the needle for customers, where organizations are encountering challenges, and some core principles around how value can be realized for you as organizations. So over to you, Shane.
Perfect. Thank you, Paul. Hello, everybody. As Paul mentioned, yes, I'm at the Zendesk side of things here, currently resigning as the AI Partner Success and Enablement Manager, and having come from companies at the forefront of innovation like Google and Qualtrics and now Zen. So I was invited to take the opportunity to speak in front of you all. Going to be about 10 minutes to chat about something that I've been hearing a lot throughout my time in those kinds of companies, specifically around the experience gap, particularly with what AI is promising us and then what actually delivers on the end. And so I know that we are all here because we're under some pressure to justify the surge of all these different AI investments. And so I think we can pretty confidently say that we're past that kind of pilot and play phase where we're not going to our executives and they're asking us, what is AI anymore? But instead they're asking, what is the specific value that your AI solution can drive? And so I want to break down the trends in AI CX into 3 simple numbers today: 3, 4, and 3. 3 areas where AI is delivering measurable value in customer experience, 4 challenges where teams might be getting a little bit stuck, and then 3 key principles to move forward. So let's get into it. So to move beyond the AI hype to practical reality, we're going to look at 3 specific areas where AI is moving that needle in businesses today. So number 1 being assistance, number 2 being insight, and number 3 being automation. So number 1, assistance, we're seeing immediate measurable gains when AI is acting as an assistant to human workers, right? So by handling the basic or mundane repetitive tasks, you're allowing AI and your teams to focus on, AI is allowing our teams to focus on the high value problem solving, hence the kind of augmented work. In fact, we did this study and organizations are reporting up to about 30% improvement in resolution times just by giving their staff a co-pilot to help navigate those daily workflows. Secondly, AI is providing us insights. So one of the most significant shifts is how AI allows us to access data. So you can imagine a couple of years ago, maybe even today, it might take multiple days of a specialized analyst or operations to build a report on top of a data set. And so now we're seeing a rise of prompt-based analytics where anyone, no matter what your skill set is, you can use natural language to process questions and to get of the data and get instant answers. And so this democratization of information allows for much faster data-driven decision-making across the entire business. And you can turn those days now into minutes. Lastly, AI providing automation. So we're moving beyond the rigid kind of construct of if this, then that programming. So modern AI is an actor now where it can search through vast knowledge bases to provide answers without needing that complex custom-built integration. So again, another study shows that organizations are achieving 60% automation of routine interactions by simply letting AI just read documentation and then act on it directly. So this all sounds good in theory, right? It's clear that AI is driving value, but if it was really this easy, why isn't every organization seeing these kinds of benefits? The reality is that for every success story, there are teams that are struggling with what AI program or problem that it can solve and where to start. And so the truth is that by implementing AI, it's less about the specifics of the technology itself and more about dealing with the friction within organizations that AI can solve. And so there are 4 key categories that are keeping teams and organizations from getting to that finish line quickly. And you can see on screen here: complexity tax, human in the loop, governance gap, and the skills and change management gap. So I'm going to describe these in a little bit more context now. So number 1, what is the complexity tax? Organizations are seeing an unoptimized series of systems, right? You might have a pretty fragmented stack of 30 to 40 different tools where some of them sing together in harmony, but the large majority may not talk to each other. And so if we take a minute to think about it, the way that AI typically looks at data is relatively transactional. We enter prompts into an AI layer, and out the back of that, it'll process that request. So if you layer AI on top of disconnected data, it's not going to make sense of it all. And that results in automated chaos. You might have heard the bad data in, bad data out saying before. Complexity really is that silent killer to the top line. And not to mention, it's causing the friction between all the different seamless experiences that we're all looking for. And so typically then, how do we respond as humans? Because we're not trusting AI and the output of AI specifically, we adopt a human in the loop mindset where we're somebody to supervise every output that AI has, right? We want to make sure that whatever we're using AI for is making the right decisions. But at scale, this might be bigger than a job. It becomes a burden for some organizations. And so the struggle really lies in transitioning to more of a flight controller model where instead of humans doing all the work and making all the checks, we're setting the boundaries, the goals, and the spaces for it to operate in. And so AI becomes really helpful, right? It's amazing. It's integrated into our ecosystem. But then the next friction point becomes the governance gap or shadow AI, where you have a lot of your team members building their own unofficial solutions within your domain. And then they're looking at those official tools that have been provisioned to them and thinking that they're maybe too slow or complex to use. Even a couple of years ago, you think about how long it took to get permissions for ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, or whatever without any specific AI policies in place, right? So without that core framework of security and data control, organizations start to face a significant risk of data leaks or brand damaging hallucinations or uploading content into AI. And so the reality is this: technology is moving way faster than human habits, right? And that is starting to define the skills and change management gap. So I think we can all agree on this call that, again, AI is important, but if we're not harnessing the energy that's being put towards AI to drive energy on that tech, we're going to fall even further behind. So if we focus 90% of our effort on the technology and only 10% on the people, we're contributing to that gap. And the struggle isn't teaching AI, but it's raising the workforce to think creatively and strategically now that we're able to move some of that more mundane work to AI. So 4 frictions: complexity, human bottleneck, governance gap, and lagging human skills gap. All of these things, again, reveal a vital truth where the barriers aren't technical, they're operational and potentially cultural, right? So you cannot build a 5-star outcome on a 2-star internal process. So the question then becomes, how do you build a way to bypass these roadblocks and actually start to deliver ROI? It requires a really big fundamental shift in how we lead. So the 3 core principles that are going to move any organization from that managing automated chaos to driving intelligent action are these. Number 1, focus on the outcome, not just the platform, right? It's difficult to solve just one massive AI platform investment, right? Instead, what we need to be doing is thinking about how AI can solve a single, potentially high impact use case. And so when you start to break ROI down into those kinds of real percentages, you're able to then execute and scale. And so it's not just when when the final project is done, you can really justify success as one step in the process at a time. Number 2, I think to amplify, we discussed about complexity being a silent drag on the business, but before you add AI, really take a look at what is able to be automated or simplified or eliminated in this case. If you can treat complexity as like a step-by-step process, again, those smaller parts allow you to not only solve bigger challenges, but it allows your team to breathe a little bit. And then lastly, human in the lead. So again, we've spoken about how it's more than a tool that just automates what we already do, but it lies in innovation, doing what we previously couldn't. And so I'm sure we've all asked AI to create a recipe or a meal or a workout plan, right? The next step in AI theoretically could be getting it to cook for you or becoming a personal trainer. That would ultimately be the next step in that kind of evolution. And so we can do this right now with our technology, right? But it does require that shift in thought leadership that we're no longer just managers of people, but managers of a human workforce and a digital worker. So 3, 4, and 3 areas where AI is delivering measurable value, 4 areas and challenges where teams might be getting stuck, and 3 principles to move forward. And so I've got one more number for you. The number 1, think about just the one area that you might be able to see and not just replace a workflow, but allow you an opportunity to innovate. So I want to share a really quick story about a case study that Zendesk has done recently, a company by the name of Sealy. Some of you might have heard of Sealy or sleep on a Sealy right now, but if you haven't heard of them, they're a mattress retailer that were established in 1881. So they came with a problem. They wanted to modernize their customer care experience while maintaining the kind of premium service standards associated with its heritage brand. Sealy decided on Zendesk as a solution to their needs in order to provide a flexible AI customer service platform. And so specifically, Sealy were able to reduce their average response time from days to 90 minutes, and that's paired with increased agent productivity by up to 30%. All of the initiatives they were in place, they were able to save time by reducing administrative workload through AI-powered automation and intelligent workflows, ultimately supporting their goals for stronger employee experiences and lower agent stress, and resulting in faster support. So I'm about to pass back over to the team, but I just want to wrap up my message in a sentence or two. AI is not coming for our jobs, but someone looking at AI in new and exciting opportunities might get more attention. And so the winners of the next decade won't be the ones with the biggest AI budgets, but it's the people who are looking to master the plumbing, simplify that chaos, and focus on the human-centric value through intelligent action. Thanks.
Love that, Shane. Thanks so much for your insights. I had a couple of key takeaways in my mind from that information. And I love the fact that you took AI provides just the ability to get vast amounts of information and get what's relevant to you as the customer. And when I think about my habits of just when I'm searching on the web these days, I'm much more unlikely to go to pages and read through rafts of articles. I really am expecting AI now which is embedded in every browser, to provide that real context and give me the answer specifically to my question without me having to go through that reams or vast amount of information. That speeds up what I'm looking for. I can move on with my life. And I think that's a really good example of, just as a customer of an organization, I want to be done with my issue as quickly as possible. So that's what it's providing. The message is clear that as well, that the recommended focus on the outcome is really important. We don't want to implement these tools for the tool's sake. You really have to be understanding where the pain points are, what you are laser focused on in resolving, and really going after those most impactful use cases, and then focusing on the optimizing and the measuring to ensure that you are being impactful with the outcome. So awesome stuff. Thanks so much, Shane. So AI is delivering better outcomes to customers, but we need to make sure, as we said, that resolutions are truly being handled and with high quality. And where you've got really high volume, that can be really a challenge. So let's now pivot in what we've known in old, say, customer service land, and into a world where AI agents and that hybrid model, as we were talking about, AI is handling a good percentage of those, so that low-hanging fruit, those most impactful issues that are coming through. When I think about the old customer service metrics, it was really based on how quickly the human agent or the human customer inquiry could be resolved within the ticket. And now that is changing. So it's not necessarily about that, the average handle time, full resolution time. And when I just, as an addition, when I think about some of those, what we were really focused on prior to some of these tools coming in, I have a colleague working in a large database company. His KPI, finished the call within 10 minutes or less, regardless of the impact of the issue, regardless of the impact of the organization, how complex it was. So anyway, we are now moving into, with these tools, really about that quality and that how do we service that. So I'm going to ask Alva to come in now to talk a little bit about his thoughts on how we look at those metrics that matter and what that change is between, as we said, old world to new world.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. What we're actually seeing is, so for a lot of customers that have adopted AI, we are seeing a shift in the thinking and how you approach your metrics. So we're going to quickly hit like a couple of core ideas just in relation to how you should be thinking about tracking performance. So what is the thinking that should drive your AI playbook and those core metrics to adopt? And when introducing AI, what metrics actually start to filter through meaningful data for you to start to look through? Because traditional contact center metrics, in a sense, aren't always translatable in that way. So one of the interesting things that we took out of a lot of the industry events that we've been attending recently is just this fact that 62% of contact leaders have limited confidence in conveying the impact and ROI of AI in their contact center. I think there's a few reasons there. I think on its own, we could probably litigate it in its own webinar, but I think what it is showing is that there are pressures for organizations to show value and return on the investment that they're actually pushing through in moving into the AI-led world. So what we would typically say is that there are 3 areas of focus to look at with your metrics, and you're going to understand your use case better in relation to what those metrics are and what business problem is you're wanting to talk to in terms of the story. But essentially what you're looking at is your storytelling should be focusing on what is the scale. So Shane touched on this before, is the scale talks to your management of growth without necessarily that linear escalation of the cost that's associated with that. What's the efficiency? So your plan is essentially to reduce waste on the CX and EX side through those journeys and through those touch points. And you want to essentially, through a lot of the conversation, lower your cost per contact. And then what's the quality focus? So you're wanting to deliver repeatability, predictability, and sort of continuous improvement through that and build out better customer outcomes. So what are the sort of the metrics that fill those scale, efficiency, and quality sort of dimensions? And how you then want to think about that is there are a few things to consider for yourself. So with traditional CX metrics, they are less transferable when they are AI led. So things like AI agent handling time, anything that is measuring volume and speed, not necessarily always going to be directly transferable to that. So in AI-led services, these can hide quality and resolution metrics that you're potentially looking for from your AI. Resolution quality is something you want to keep on your radar, as it's not so much just about deflection. You want to make sure the customers are achieving the result that they're after and that you're delivering that as part of your AI experience. Being able to then also ring fence your AI impact from your human impact as well. Your AI agent is a separate bucket. What do you actually look at that? Or how do you measure the quality of that as you would an agent? And then how are you aligning your business problems to how you're then measuring the performance of your core AI? And I guess that's like where we are talking about operationally. It's thinking about how do those measures shift in your use case from how agents are essentially delivering their service to what we actually want the AI agent to actually do for you. And then using those pillars around scale, efficiency, and quality, you can then start to talk a little bit better around building out your ROI story and then what that essentially looks like for you. So how do we actually start to make that pivot? I think that's like one of those key changes. And we would just want to summarize those and provide some sort of short examples here, just in terms of how we make those changes. So one of the things you might do is start indexing on like activity and effort. That means a little less on the AI agent side, but one of the things that we can look to do there is shift to a little bit more resolution and interactions, which we'll explore in a second. This idea of a single CSAT score doesn't really work in the new world because you have a human agent CSAT, but then you can also typically want to CSAT your AI agent as well. Just because you've also done automation or you're looking at bringing in automation, that doesn't obviously also mean a successful containment. It can actually mask failures in your workflow as well. So what are you looking at in terms of translating the effectiveness of what you're doing from a build and use case perspective? And then there's the idea around tracking a large suite of KPIs and adding to that suite of KPIs. So what you actually want to do, and this is where that next point around the reporting on the value of it versus technical features actually starts to become quite important. So in the new world, what you want to do is if you're moving from activity and effort-based metrics, you really want to start to focus on the resolutions. So things like AI resolution rate and your escalation rate, things like first contact resolution as well. You really want to start to pull those threads. When you're thinking about CSAT, you're really thinking about isolating your CSAT from a BSAT feature, so your bot satisfaction in there as well. How do you then start to translate capacity and cost? So this is where you then start to talk to a message around what is your time saved per interaction? And then what does that look like from a cost per ticket or cost per resolution? That is generally a lot of what we end up talking about in a lot of conversations when AI agents come into the fore. But I think cost per ticket is one of a few different things you should be measuring when AI agents actually come into it. And then what you're then looking at is expanding your metrics when you are looking at your suite of data that you're looking at to start to tell a bit more of a story that is diagnostic of the customer experience in the journey. So what does that look like from a quality perspective? You'll start to get a little bit more analysis on the root cause of issues and where things start to break down. You can start to delve a little bit deeper in that. And then through the AI agent, you can start to measure sentiment. You can start to measure a deeper understanding of where that CSAT is falling over, just not specifically from what the customer is responding to in terms of a survey. And then when you're talking about the value and what you're implementing, we know that or from what we speak to a lot of customers around is they want to gradually scale up how they're implementing their AI agent. So in that sense, you're not necessarily going to use one measure at the start of your journey, specifically around, say, orchestration and what information your AI agent is pulling into that experience if you're not at that stage yet. So what you really want to start thinking about is if you are early in your AI agent journey, what is the measure that best aligns to the solution that you're providing customers? So if it's generative knowledge and you're pulling primarily from your knowledge-based content, you might look at how many of those tickets are actually being managed just through that initial customer journey and flow. You may not necessarily want to delve too deeply onto the end-to-end orchestration and completion of that because you're not at that path yet. So measures and metrics at the stage that you're in your AI agent journey will be super important in terms of how you then move forward. So then what that then means from your conversation, you then start to piece together like a little bit more of a better story around having that conversation internally. Now, this is obviously a very basic example here, but you're able to then ground your message into a business problem. You can start to then articulate the measurable business outcomes to what that problem has been. And then you're embedding that within your scale, efficiency, and quality narrative that you're trying to then pull together from that. Back to you, Paul. You're still on mute, Paul.
Knew that was going to get me. Thanks, Alva. I appreciate you presenting that. I did have a question for you, though. Just when we talk about old world, and I'm calling them, I apologize, but calling them old world kind of measurements to the measurements in a new world. You mentioned about quality and measuring quality, and the old measurements are easy, right? From the start that the inquiry comes in to the time it's resolved, those sorts of measurements are really clear. But the measurement around quality is a little bit maybe nebulous. Just wondering what your thoughts are there.
Yeah. So I think that is like where some contact centers have never necessarily measured quality. We obviously walk into a lot of contact centers where they're not necessarily measuring quality right now. The emphasis starts to increase when you are bringing in something that is a little more autonomous in terms of an agent, because you're wanting to understand what the challenge is. I think this is where tools and the benefit of integrated tools like QA within Zendesk comes in, where you then have the ability to use a quality assurance module to then measure the effectiveness and the resolutions that a bot is doing for you. Now, there's obviously a little bit of customization there just in relation to specific use cases and the detection of those use cases. But I think it puts additional emphasis on these are contacts that you are probably never necessarily seeing. An agent is not going to talk to you about it, unlike a human agent. So the ability to review those contacts automatically is going to be super important, considering that a high volume of that is actually going to come through without you even knowing that is critical.
Yeah, makes sense. Thanks, Alva. I did just want to, and I know just conscious of time as well, but I did just want to go back to the poll. And so thanks for everyone for putting in the details there. Interestingly, so about a quarter of panelists came back with, we're learning about AI and evaluating where it could fit. So 24%. And then the other large chunk was AI is actually being rolled out more broadly across the channels and teams. So that's actually the biggest stat of 29% of the audience. So really appreciate your input into that. All right. Now, we did want to talk just really briefly about what you touched on around ROI, and we did want to mention it because from a business perspective, you may want to model what the return looks like. So if you're starting out, what that return looks, and then you can actually measure your success based off of that ROI. So Alva, can you just tell us just briefly about what that can look like and how we might go about it?
Yeah. So we obviously do a lot of engagements with customers just in relation to not only implementing sort of AI agents, but also the preparation and readiness that's involved with that as well. One of the key things that we can do is work with you over a couple of sessions to have a bit of a conversation around what is your goal? What are your strategy? What are your business problems in relation to articulating that, but then also looking at you as an organization and your general readiness for that, which kind of leads into this. So I think we will post in a little bit of a link shortly, just in terms of how you can reach out to us. But I guess what we'll do is we'll have that link available for you so that you can sort of book in a little bit of a session with myself and Sherwin.
Yeah, amazing. Thanks, Alva. All right. So we're coming up to about time. We were going to talk about a bit of a customer story, but I think just to ensure that everyone's time is honored there, we will wrap up. And look, I really appreciate everyone's time for joining us today. Really appreciate Alva and Shane, your insights there. AI is clearly becoming a core part of the future of customer service. And the biggest takeaway is that I think that success doesn't come from the tech alone. It comes from having the right foundations in place, clear use cases, strong knowledge, the right operating model, and a way to measure what's actually you're wanting to improve for both your customer and your business. So hopefully you've seen that come through with the conversation today. But we're seeing that the strongest organizations are taking really a pragmatic approach. So not trying to automate everything at once, not boiling the ocean. It's really bringing it down in chunks. Where customers are successful, they're starting, where AI can add the most amount of value, focusing on the quality of resolutions, as we heard today, building confidence in the outcomes, and then really scaling from there. So as Alva mentioned, if you're asking yourself, where do we start? How do we prove the ROI? And what does good look like? We'd shameless plug, but we would at SuccessCX, we would love to help our expert services. Alva, as you heard, is willing with our team here to give some time if you're needing to chat and work out your own strategy there. We will put in just to contact us. But yeah, and feel free to drop something in the chat and we can book a time after. So again, all really appreciate everyone's time. We're on the journey together and to essentially improve all of our customer experiences and customer service. And yeah, enjoy the journey. And yeah, it all starts from here. So much appreciated. Thanks for everyone for your time.
It sounds like as well, though, we will have a survey as well, just at the end of the session, just in terms of anything that you want to feed through to ourselves and Zendesk. But thank you everyone for attending.
Thanks all.
Okay, welcome everyone. Glad you're here at the Zendesk Future of Service. We hope you've been enjoying the presentations. This is CX Leadership Session at SuccessCX, brought to you by SuccessCX, the Zendesk Premier Partner. We're always looking to continue growing great relationships with CX leaders, and it's been an amazing day, really insightful in terms of hearing from our great community and also having real conversations with peers and really navigating the challenges all of us experience in our day-to-day, especially the wins, the hard lessons, and the questions that none of us have fully figured out yet. We're really lucky to have one of our great customers here, Brendan Ward, who's Head of Operations and Customer Service at Petstock. And he's here to share his journey in CX, AI, and especially in dealing with the capabilities of AI in delivering service. What we'll cover, especially how Brendan's thinking about building the human connection with the support of AI, also making sure customers truly come first in an AI journey as well, and also understanding how AI fits in, and also what it takes to align people, processes, and technology in delivering great customer experience and also delivering great loyalty as well. We'll also hear from Alva Toison, Director and Principal Consultant in ANZ, who has a unique perspective as both a Zendesk customer and also from consulting customers as well. But before we dive in, a couple of quick intros.
Yep, I hope everyone can hear us nice and well. A bit of a surreal experience with the silent disco here at Zendesk. So thanks to them to give us that awkward experience. I'm Brendan Ward from Petstock. So we're the blue one, not the yellow one at Pet Barn at 1:30. Go to the blue one, not the yellow one. No, they're great competition. They have some really good, insightful stuff to talk about. So I'm head of customer operations and experience for Australia and New Zealand. We operate 365 days a year, basically, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And basically the remit that we look after is our support for our online customers, our retail customers across 260 stores across Australia and New Zealand, and also our specialised support from our retail stores as well. They can call us up anytime and get the support that they need. A whole lot of the both some functions, but that's primarily what we do over at Petstock, the blue one.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Alva. So I'm the Director of Operations at SuccessCX. As Sean mentioned, I am an ex-Zendesk customer. Was for a good maybe about 15 years, worked for the likes of REA Group, Sportsbet, Optus and things like that. So I'm now on the dark side, the consulting side, helping out our great customers like Brendan on their strategy and how to optimize Zendesk for their operations essentially.
Great, thank you. Kicking off, starting with customer obsession. Appreciate that word's thrown around a lot these days, but I appreciate there's a very big difference we've noticed when it comes to talking about it versus actually operationalizing it. And I know, Brendan, you're personally very passionate about delivering great customer experiences, and gets me curious about the first question. So I guess it'd be great to hear about your experiences with customer experience focus, especially what expectations your customers have and perhaps how they've been changing.
So I think the good starting point is to tell you a little bit about Petstock. We're the Ballarat success story from Victoria. So we're over $1 billion company now, 25 years. Two brothers, the Youngs, they're still involved in the business. And really take back to my first day with the business, it was walk into Shane Young's office, comes in, Brendan, never lose a punter. That's our ethos, right? We try and bring that to life every day. So just thinking about you and your operations, I bet you're trying to optimize, trying to constantly improve the BAU, right? So that's how you really think about it, with that service, CSAT, first response, what kind of resolution you're doing. So we're along that journey with you. I think everyone's doing that in the room these days. What we're really trying to think about and how we try and lend to the expectations around our customers is getting away from that traditional customer journey, from that consideration piece to the help and rethink where we primarily play around that customer service and support. And so we're really trying to elevate moments that matter. And a really good example of moments that matter is when the pet passes, we can do some really great things like our competitors do and what we do. You can go donate your food, we'll give you up to 110% refund when that occurrence happens. But we've done a trial, we're just about to put it into BAU, into sort of mass production. Is when a pet passes, we want to send you a personalised gift. So a handwritten letter and a little bit of a picture frame from Petstock, and it's branded, it's got a nice little message from us and things like that. And we're not going to get that business straight away, especially if the pet passes and that's still they're only their pet. But we want them to consider us and to get us to really bring our values to life. And how do they get us back into that consideration funnel? So when we're thinking about some of the stuff that we'll talk about today, about how we can optimize and become more efficient, we want to get those things efficient, those low value transactions. So our team can really think about the moments that matter and really elevate those conversations and those experiences for our customers to come back through the customer journey into the Petstock group.
Yeah, really interesting. I feel like especially a pet passing being such a high stakes moment and also a very memorable moment. So the CX interaction around that being especially critical.
Yeah, we want our team members, they do a fantastic job, just like most customer service organisations and departments, right? And we just want to bring them to life a little bit more. That's the value that they can bring. So we talked about value in some of our keynote speakers before, and that's the value that we want, is to really elevate that human interaction, that personal connection about a really bad times in a family's life, losing a pet family. It's really just trying to optimize that, enable that experience for our agents and our customers.
Yeah, really critical. And Alva, curious, I guess from your point of view with customer obsession, what do you think separates the people you've seen who only speak to it versus those who more operationalize it?
Yeah. I think it's one of those things where I certainly in my prior roles as like a head of / director kind of role, let what you have in like your PowerPoint presentation deck around being customer obsessed and what it actually means when you deliver that, there can be quite a perception bias or disparity between what you've got and what you're presenting to internal stakeholders and then what you're actually delivering internally. But probably the one thing that I've seen and what I've found with our role consulting with customers is like where a lot of that real customer obsession comes in play is how you're actually working with other teams and departments as customer experience as a whole, not just you as a support team in a silo wanting to make the changes on your own. There are multiple touch points that exist on the customer journey, and there's multiple opportunities for you to be able to optimize that experience. Typically, a support team is right down that end, but what can you do by partnering with product, by partnering with marketing, by working with technology around giving them a consistent view of what you're trying to achieve? Because I guess one of the challenges I've had in the past was you are constantly feeling like you're fighting against internal stakeholders around what you want to achieve, but sometimes getting in front of that, showing that vision around what you actually want to do and how you want to implement it, getting people on board and letting them know that they directly impact that kind of helps out that conversation a lot.
Yeah, it gets me thinking about, especially what you were saying when we were speaking the other day about with leaders also absorbing multiple responsibilities and more coordinated remits. That only adds a bit more complexity to these conversations. And
Yeah, we're finding so many more businesses are not just head of support or head of service. They're like HR and support or risk and support. Like their support is one vertical of what they're trying to do, or customer experience is a vertical of what they're trying to do. Just being able to, you can't necessarily rely on your CX hat to push the narrative or push those conversations internally. You have to be a little bit more proactive than reactive in terms of how you then try to influence the customer experience.
yeah, got you. So proactive and very cross-functional feedback.
Yeah. And like to think that most support people are people. I know that doesn't always turn out being the case, but yeah, just a lot of the conversations can be difficult, like to try and influence tech to change their roadmap because you need an integration or something like that, right? That can be tough. But I guess what we're trying to say is like, how are we showing them the value of what we're trying to achieve? And are they on that journey early enough, particularly with the AI conversation and how we're talking about a lot of the AI bots actually reaching out and setting up actions, is that you want to have that conversation early. You can't obviously drop that on them and say, hey, we want to integrate the system. With a couple of weeks notice, they're going to look at you and go, no chance. So being proactive and being really embedded with those key stakeholders, having those conversations, getting onto their radar early helps facilitate those. And that's where we see a lot of businesses find success and meet that customer obsession side of things really well.
Yeah, gotcha. And you made a great point about AI. And I appreciate that for us, especially thinking about how does one leverage AI for these use cases in delivering great experience and great loyalty. But I think also, especially things like traps or risks or anything that could impact on that customer experience positively or negatively only becoming more important. Brendan, I know we've had a lot of discussions with you and Petstock about your AI-led strategy. And I feel like you've been really great at being vocal with us and the business about making sure that there's a really clear and important role that human agents will play in this process. Would you mind sharing some key thoughts?
So we'll get some crowd interaction here. Love it. So put your hand up if you're using AI. Yeah. Keep your hand up if you've nailed your AI strategy. Good. So everyone's in the same boat as us, right? So that's where we're at, and that's completely fine. I think that's what we can take away from this morning, right? Is I think you just got to start to embed yourself. But I think the key takeout that I took, which we've been talking about, ladies probably did a better job of me trying to surmise it a little bit, is what's the value that it's going to try and drive, right? So really trying to understand what you're trying to get out of it. And then you've got a bit more of a success pathway to go forward. So we've been in conversation with Zendesk and our AE, Eric, I think he's still here. Yeah, he's got his hand up. And we've got Paul and the team. It's really about an enabler, right? And so we know we're really tackling the low-hanging fruit, which we know are the easy things. And I heard Pet Barn just talk about it, a competitor, I'll refer them again, how to track an order, right? And how do I get information to that? We operate 8 till 8. And so what we're really trying to target with our first pathway of what we're trying to do and what we're trying to lend towards is really trying to tackle those out of hours where they don't have the full support from our omni-channel experience. And then on the weekends, we have lower capacity as well, right? That's the real low-hanging fruit. And we're just looking at like top 10 transactions, right? And so we're going to work on a 12-month pathway of trying to get nailed and embed those 10, 12, all those experiences to enable it. And then what should that really do is, give our people more time to spend around those complex type transactions. Talked about those moments that matter. We want our AHT or our average transaction time, whatever type of legacy metric you want to use, to increase, right? We want them to have really good interactions with our customers. We want them to send photos of their pets. We want them to talk about their own pets, all that kind of stuff. We want that to be the hero, and all the low value stuff, we want to just push through AI or some sort of functionality. This is what it's going to be. And that's how we're going to try and leverage and drive the value through our business and for our customers ultimately as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You make a good point there about how prepared one has to be for these types of activities as well. I guess over to you, Alva. Your experience looking at the ANZ landscape, would you be seeing, or would you have any thoughts on what businesses are doing well when it comes to being AI prepared?
Yeah, I think part of the conversation that was had this morning, part of the presentation this morning was around about being prepared from a role/KPIs perspective. Like what we're seeing with a lot of customers is that is playing out majorly. Like you've got all these resources that are helping drive your operations, but what do KPIs look like when you cut out low-hanging fruit? Like what, from an agent perspective, what does that reset look like? All of a sudden, agent KPIs are blowing out because all those like smaller, low value failure type contacts are trying to be funneled through your AI bot essentially. So there's that aspect of that in terms of, say, like from a pure performance metrics, but then also from an agent capability as well. So part of the presentation was we were showing that there are VIP customers or that they're taking on more advanced contact types. Are your agents prepared for that? Are they well trained for that? Are they doing more elevated soft skills, that sort of stuff? So we're seeing that there's some businesses that are having to pivot to that quickly, but they're doing that more reactively than proactively. So one of the things that we are having conversations with customers about is have a think about that, right? So your people is typically one of the secondary things you think about in terms of dimension. Everyone's very focused on AI as the technology. What are the people and process dimensions of that? And what do you need to consider as part of it? I think the other one that we see quite frequently is around what are agent expectations when you introduce something like Copilot to them? What does that change conversation look like? What are the expectations? Because we all know that obviously Zendesk can provide you with some transparency around utilization and how many agents are leveraging Copilot, but then sometimes we have some conversations around only 2% of people are actually using the auto assist or 5% of people are leveraging XYZ feature, right? So that then comes down to what were the conversations being had prior to that? Are we enabling the team to make decisions? What does that mean for their decision making? Do the agents actually have agency to make decisions still as a continuity point of that? And then maybe probably the final one here is primarily around, depending on what your current customer experience has been like up to the point that you're introducing AI, how are you communicating AI to customers? Is there a communication plan? Do you want to go cold turkey? What does that potential impact look like? And if you are planning on introducing it, how do you communicate that you're pushing contact of low value / failure demand and you're concentrating more on the high value stuff? How does that get communicated to a customer around that and helping that adoption rate essentially of customers going through the AI?
Yeah, so true. That consideration and that communication.
Yeah, that's it.
Amazing.
I mean, maybe change management is the overarching umbrella thing here, but like, I think we can get so obsessed with the technology that we forget to pull that back and look at the people and process.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time, both. Thank you, Brendan. Thank you, Alva.
No
And that's a wrap on this session. So we'll be by the SuccessCX booth, Brendan, for the next 30 minutes and Alva and I as well. Thank you so much for your time and have a great rest of your event.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. Welcome to our webinar, Leading CX in the AI-Driven World. My name is Eileen Pierce, and I am your Zendesk host for today, and you are in for a treat. Joining us is RMS Cloud to chat about the custom transformation journey. But before we get started, please note that the Q&A chat window is open, so feel free to drop any questions during the webinar. We'll be responding directly into the chat window and also at the end of the webinar if we have time. We're also recording the session, so we'll make sure to send you a copy of this after the session. We're really excited for today's conversation, so let's dive straight in. RMS Cloud is a global property management technology provider who is utilizing AI to reshape their customer experience and enabling their support teams to move from reactive problem solving to having more strategic impact. We're also excited to welcome Garth Kay, VP of Customer Support at RMS Cloud, to share RMS's cloud journey of modernizing their customer experience from scaling their Zendesk environments to innovating with AI agents. And who better than to lead this conversation than Paul Bigsaw, Director of SuccessCX, who is instrumental in guiding and supporting RMS Cloud as they implement and test AI capabilities in the real world. CX workflows, ensuring the right balance between innovation, quality, and trust. So today you'll hear firsthand how this partnership has made tangible difference in their CX transformation. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Paul and Garth to kick off this exciting conversation. Over to you, Paul.
Thanks so much, Eileen, and really excited to be here with my colleague Garth Kay from RMS. Just a quick introduction. So I'm CEO founder of SuccessCX, which is a premier partner of Zendesk and AI certified experts with advanced AI agents. I've been working with Garth and our team over the last 10 months, and we've seen some great successes with the work that we've all been doing with Garth around optimization and continual improvement of Garth's customer service capabilities. Looking forward to sharing more with our audience. And yeah, welcome, Garth. Can I get you maybe just to introduce yourself, please?
Certainly. Thanks, Paul. Good to be talking to you about this. I know it's been a fantastic 10 months for myself personally and the team underneath me, but as introduced, VP of Customer Support, I've worked for RMS Cloud now for 8 and a bit years, many different roles in the organization, but I now look after our support and onboarding operations across RMS.
Fantastic. And thanks to all the audience for joining us. And for those that couldn't join us, there'll be a link later to access the recording. So thanks, everyone. So let's get down to some questions, Garth, and deep diving into RMS Cloud and from where you've been to the current state and the future. Very excited to talk about it. So first up, Garth, can you give us maybe a sense of RMS Cloud support operation today, about the scale, the scope, the global footprint, maybe some complexities of the environment that you're working in?
Yeah, so RMS Cloud, we're a property management system, and that can mean many different things to many people. We operate in several different verticals as such. It's just not hotels and accommodation providers. We're shopping centers, we're workforce, and different verticals. And we operate across 70 different countries now. So it is a true global footprint. Up until last year, or when we started engaging around this Zendesk transformation project, it was very much regionalized teams looking after that regional support. And some of the complexity was in regional based activities. And we weren't really delivering what I would consider a consistent high quality service across that global organization as well. Sorry.
Yeah, no, keep going, please.
Oh, look, I didn't know where you were going to go with the next question. So, why we had to transform was the next point. I mentioned 70 clients. We have multiple clients that operate across multiple regional and geographic areas as well. So it was more about ensuring they were getting the same consistent experience from our customer support and onboarding teams. The regional teams are working very independently. It was that inconsistent model. And a lot of those multinational clients have strict SLAs with us, which was a premeditating factor as to why we wanted a global organization. Our clients aren't 9 to 5. We can't be 9 to 5 for our clients. And certainly our SLAs in some instances aren't measured in business hours. So we needed a true global follow the sun model that worked across multiple regions, and that required scalable frameworks and consistency.
Yeah, and so you mentioned 70 countries, obviously multiple languages as well, multiple time zones. So quite some complexity there in dealing with the customer's demands and inquiries. So, I guess when we came in and partnered with you, we definitely it was a challenge because of those complexities. One thing that we did talk about earlier was, some of the, I guess, impacts where, customer service, perhaps, the targets the targets of delivery. I think RMS Cloud, you really work to deliver great customer service to your customers. You even have, I believe, penalties for sort of breaching sort of targets and things like that. So not sure whether you want to mention anything about that, but it's about, I guess I just wanted to point that out. There are financial implications if you're not delivering the service as agreed with your customers.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, we do have SLAs in place. There are ramifications for us in certain areas when those SLAs are not met. And SLAs, again, for us in those situations aren't measured by our business hours as we operate in certain areas. It is 24/7 support in those certain instances.
Absolutely. Just the reason why it's such important designing a scalable system effectively work across all that complexity without compromising quality, obviously.
Well,
All
I
right.
guess that leads into that built for scale sort of comment that I made earlier, and I can elaborate further on that. So for us and what RMS is trying to achieve, built for scale is really about offering that consistent customer experience, regardless of the geography. It is very much an SOP-led model as well. And that SOP is very focused on standard operational practices, but realistically, ticket handling methodology, our customer experience, our customer communications, the quality of the service we want to offer shouldn't be dependent on the location. It's really about why we look to Zendesk and the way we're utilizing it to create really solid foundations for that, scalable systems we're looking at. We don't want to be rebuilding this every 6 months. We want to build a scalable system with governance for evolution, but this is really designed with a 2-year customer experience vision in mind and growing upon that as we go.
Absolutely. Yeah, the built for scale is interesting. I mean, you're obviously demand is on the rise, so you really need to be, working as efficiently as you can to scale and to meet that future demand as well. Just in terms of, balancing sort of that, talk about sort of the global consistency. How did you sort of balance that consistency with, the realities, I guess, of the different markets, different cultures, no doubt, different customer needs? We talked about language as well, but there's probably some nuances there across the globe that you do need to cater for. Any sort of thoughts around that space?
But it's an interesting question, and it's an interesting way to handle that. We talk about customer experience needing to be consistent. For me, that means the experience our customers get must meet their expectations, but we can't modify the product result. So ensuring that we have a clean knowledge base that provides the foundation for what the knowledge can do, what is achievable within that space. But we can be flexible a little bit in terms of our language, our tone, our communication channels. So where we have a consistent approach to product-related questions or the how-to, in terms of our methodology around engaging with the clients, that can be very regional specific. And again, SOPs guide this as well. And we can drill down further in terms of those channels. And, you and I know we've spoken quite a bit. I have an end game vision for help with where it needs. And I'm sure we're going to touch on that a little bit later. But right now it's delivering the right information in the right way for the clients in the best way that we can.
Yeah, fantastic. This is my favorite question, Garth and team. So how important was it to getting the right implementation partner or partner in optimizing and building this capability out and getting that foundation right?
Hugely important. Like, I cannot stress that enough for my position and the experience I've had in terms of transformation and system changes. Shout out to you, Hamish, Lawrence, Elva, Amy, Annalise, Elliot, everyone that's been involved in this project. They've all been equally fantastic. But for us and the position we're in with our usage of Zendesk and us as an organization, it was very important for us to find the right partner that understood customer experience in general, that wasn't just people that were going to come in and change the configuration. It was very important that we understood this was a transformational process, not just in terms of the system usage, but in the way this organization wanted to manage itself. We were looking for guidance on what best practice was. A Garthism that's quite often heard in terms of my internal organization is, what does great look like? We want to know what that looks like. We also want to be challenged internally. So it was good to find yourself and the team, which offered me some alignment on the culture that we're trying to build. But there's a cultural alignment in the way we operate, the way we talk, the way we behave. And realistically, we wanted someone that understood what we were trying to build, so that they built the foundation that was future proofed. So it was all together something that we took a lens to that covered people, process, and technology, and finding the right partner in that space that met all of those requirements and ticked all those boxes was hugely critical. And I'm glad that we did find the right partner in this regards.
Thanks, Garth. Appreciate it. And can I say as well, Garth, you've got an amazing team that are delivering some great service for your customers, but they have some really deep expertise and knowledge that you can't replace. We do, as SuccessCX, we do, see a lot of different industries and some of the benchmarking numbers and things that what looks good and what looks great, but there's no replacement for those people that are in your team that really know the business and really know the customers. So it does, it is a partnership where we can work together. So thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Paul.
All right. So with that foundation in place, the next step, looking sort of beyond that reactive support, focusing on empowering customers, empowering your agents also. Let's talk a little bit around, one of the aspects, I guess, of being able to scale, and that is the self-service strategy. So, the ability for your customers to access information 24/7, when and where they need it. So just how did that, tell us a little bit about how that played a role in the strategy, and maybe what gaps were there originally, and what we had to work on.
In terms of gaps, I mean, we engaged because our usage of Zendesk wasn't delivering the desired data that we needed to better inform ourselves on what we needed to focus on and help define the strategy for our CX support experience. Early gaps that we identified once we had built some foundational information up. And we actually knew this anecdotally anyway, was that the majority of our customers were bypassing help center articles. Self-service was not a element of our client experience. So a lot of our customers were bypassing the help center. There was habits that had been developed of logging tickets immediately, and a lot of that ticket information wasn't necessarily relevant to the initial triage or the initial investigation. There is a high volume of basic how-to questions. As that sort of wave of tickets kept coming in, our backlog continued to grow. Backlog is the killer of many positive things when it comes to customer experience and customer support. Our first response times were declining, our backlog was growing, our customer satisfaction was declining, our resolution times were impacted. And it became quite obvious that there were absolute knowledge-based gaps, and there was absolutely issues in the way we implemented taxonomy around all of our subject matter, all of our different verticals. And that was a key focal point in terms of this foundational change as well.
Yeah, and I guess that just sort of going back to that foundational change, that was a really important component, wasn't it? So making sure that the information was captured, or was captured within the tickets, so that we get actually run reporting to analyze what the customers are asking for, and then also sort of doubling down on those areas of knowledge that we knew that the customers were wanting and needing.
Yeah, correct.
Cool. So onto the talking continually on that self-service. So the word deflection, sort of I'm not sure that's a very positive word, and I'd probably reframe it into sort of resolutions, and I could talk about that. I'm quite passionate around the self-service and resolutions. How do you think, just in terms of customer experience, and one of your ongoing goals is delivering that great customer experience. How do we make that better? So just when we mention sort of self-service and customer experience, often the two are sort of talked about separately, but can you tell us a little bit about how it has improved the customer experience from offering that, that additional capability around self-service?
So I think if you look at self-service in general, for me, self-service is not necessarily about blocking customers from support. And I think that's a key fundamental foundation that everyone needs to understand. It's more about ensuring that our clients are getting the answers they need in a faster manner. We spoke about some of the early gaps that we identified. So I'm going to reference Miles right now, and we'll hear about Miles a little bit later, but here's our advanced agent AI that sits right now front and center in front of our guests, our clients, I should say. And Miles is there to provide timely answers. So we spoke, we identify that a lot of our volume is the how-to questions. If Miles can answer them in real time and guide our end users in the right way, that's a fantastic result. So, self-service is, again, not about blocking customers from contacting support in the right avenues. It's about providing them answers on the spot when they need it, removing that low-hanging, low-complexity fruit from the equation and making sure that we're servicing up those agents. And it frees our agents to focus on more complex issues like building out and closing those knowledge base gaps that we've identified. This shift will help us absolutely change from reactive, and it has to a great degree. And that's been a big part of the RMS lifestyle, reactive to issues to proactive customer experience. And there's going to be continued investment from us in terms of content ownership in that space as well. And you can't say self-service and stop there. It's always about this continuous improvement. How do we continue to improve upon that experience? What else do we need to do? And that's a program that we're building into our organization as well.
Yeah, no, and that's, they're really good points, Garth. Because you are supporting your product, customers, I imagine, they have a lot of questions that probably are on high repeat. And so having your agents actually sort of responding to them manually must be a real drag. And that, self-service is perfect for those kind of inquiries, I think, where people just want to get answers quickly. They want to manage their own time. They want to be stuck in a queue somewhere. So yeah, a lot of customers are really moving their preference to that self-service. Cool. So let's now talk a little bit or examine how, we talked about sort of capturing the data, better data hygiene as part of the program of work that we did. It was around sort of making that agent workspace more efficient as well, so that inquiries got to the agents quicker. They could actually see in their dashboards what SLAs, that they needed to get on, where's the priority of work and things like that. Talking about sort of data visibility, how, what sort of improvements did you see in the way of that data visibility? How did it change the way that the management, I guess, and the capabilities on that support desk day to day?
Oh, so many different areas in terms of our throughput, our capacity, giving us insights into sort of field marketing operations. But yeah, I guess it boils down to, it gave us more visibility into what were those low complexity repeat questions, what, training items we needed to focus in on, inefficiencies within our knowledge base. It really helped us identify certain areas or features of our core application or modules that were real volume drivers, not necessarily consistently over 12 months, but at certain periods. And it gave us a real opportunity to move from these regional portfolios as well to that global team. And as a part of that global team and understanding the data behind it, it moved away from very much an agent handles all elements of questions they might get related to a certain subset of clients to a very focused skill-based model in terms of what we do. So we now have implemented skill-based routing. There's still areas for improvement in that area, but it's been beneficial to us. Agents now are more aligned to their strengths or what they feel passionate about in terms of handling client queries. And when you have agents in that position that are empowered in that way, it not only provides faster resolution and better efficiency within the support floor and the support operations in general, but our customers feel more trusted in terms of their interactions. They know they're speaking to someone that is a subject matter expert or just as passionate about them in that specific area as well.
Mm-hmm.
So again, that was probably the biggest benefit we had when we were able to look at the taxonomy of what we were building in our knowledge base, how our ticket forms were generated, and align the queries and the questions related to those features to someone who was like, I know that, and I love talking about it, and I want to take that forward. So it's been a positive cultural shift as well in that regards.
Yeah, and no doubt, sort of from an efficiency perspective. So you're getting say a specific, inquiry type or something that one of your agents is expert in, getting that to the right person quickly for them to answer. No doubt, driving sort of that improved efficiency that we were looking for as part of the program.
Absolutely. And we've got results to show that, almost a 40% reduction in first response time, almost 40% reduction as well in our full resolution time. And that's, in comparison to our full calendar year last year. So that's impressive in a short space of time.
Yeah, fantastic. That's great, Garth. So from so we've gone from optimizing essentially. We've built out some self-service capability. We've broken down maybe some of the silos, built this global customer service capability. So the next step, and what maybe a lot of people are waiting for, is the AI component. So tell us a little bit. So let's talk about, for those that may not know some of the product lineups, there is two parts to the AI capability. One is the agent side of things in the Copilot supporting the agent. The other one is the advanced AI agents. Let's talk a little bit about the agent support and leveraging AI to support the agents. Give us a little bit of a feel for that capability and how the agents, and we've spoken before about bringing AI into a customer service land can be fraught with danger. There's always a little bit of concern that AI is going to take my job. We see that in the news every day. But tell us a little bit about that implementation of that agent side of Copilot and maybe some of the challenges and what you've seen. Hopefully, some of the improvements that's provided.
Well, you mentioned at the beginning of the piece, when we're talking about the team underneath me, and our people are great. They're great at what they do. There's inefficiencies in the way that we operate at times, but that'll be improved over the period of time. So valuing that human factor, it cannot be diminished from anything that we do. In fact, maintaining employee satisfaction is an OKR. So, and that satisfaction with the AI tools as we introduce it, that's a fundamental guiding principle of the CX organization. So we framed AI, and we continue to believe that it's an efficiency enabler. It augments the ability the agents have to help them work and help engage with our clients. It means working smarter rather than replacing their roles. That's what it is. And there's no denying that approach. The approach that we've taken here is, we're empowering our agents to focus on more complex issues, really change our motive from reactive support ticket handlers to knowledge, fosterers, creation of knowledge articles, and really, again, foster a culture of positive contribution and teamwork. So that's what AI has enabled us to do. And that's the Copilot tool, which sits inside the Zendesk application. That's just about enabling these features as well. I think Copilot itself is fantastic. I'd love to understand more of how we can leverage even more of it. But, we have a clear SOP around ticket triage that heavily implements Copilot usage, in terms of past resolutions, knowledge-based article, provisions, all of this information, almost diminishes the requirement we have around skill-based routing when the internal tools are surfacing up the solutions before you've even read the first two lines of what the client's asking about. So it's a powerful tool, and it's been fantastic. And it sort of firmed for me as the foundation of everything we wanted to do with AI, and it gave us an ability to dip our toe in the pool before we put it in front of our clients and their guests.
Yeah, no, really, really good points there, Garth. And I think earlier you talk about, delivering consistency, and some of those, some of the recommendations that AI provides to the agents. Hey, there's an article here. Maybe there's this macro that you could use to really sort of driving that consistency and all the, I guess, the components within the platform. Recommendations on what to do next is helpful for the agents. Great. All right. So still on sort of AI with the support agents, like maybe we've already answered this, but
I might have jumped ahead.
yeah,
Sorry.
you might have. But yeah, look, safe to say, I think that, that Copilot is really providing that support for the agents. I
Yeah, look,
wonder,
I hit on the stats before, but I'll cover it over for everyone that's watching this. Even just that level of AI implementation at that agent engagement level, we've seen a reduction in response times already. We've improved our resolution rates. It is absolutely making our agents work more effectively, and it does have a foundational shift in terms of a knowledge-first approach. Like, oh, Copilot didn't present a solution here. I've got to go away and find out why. Rather than, okay, I'm going to stop, Copilot didn't help me, I'm going to go investigate the ticket now. So that's been a formative change for us. That's been a byproduct naturally of our engagement with Copilot and the agent's reliance on it as it moves forward.
and the contribution as well, I would say, you talk about continual improvement. The agents are required when they do see a gap. Hey, let's mark that down. Let's put it into, say, a draft article. Let's create some content that will help for next time. So it really does embody that continual improvement, and everyone's really part of that process to make it the best you can be.
Correct.
Excellent stuff. So that's the agent side. Now, I know it's early days, Garth. The advanced AI agent component, which is actually the messaging or the chatbot capabilities, we went live with that only 3 weeks ago. So it's early days, but wondering whether you can talk to us a little bit about what that experience was like. I mean, we've got the knowledge now. We've got the agents supported. Now it's time to roll out that that chatting mechanism, utilizing all that knowledge that you've put a lot of effort into.
Yeah, probably to preface where we're at, and I've got to say it's a soft launch. So it's a small but growing sample, but it's been a journey to get here that's seen quite a lot of querying of the advanced agent AI. So in every aspect of change that we've implemented, we have always had our support team members, from tier 1 through to tier 3 involved in the change process. So we spoke about taxonomy and forms. This wasn't a decision made at the leadership level. This was a decision that was made across the global support base with everyone's input. I'm a big believer that if you are involved in the change, you own the change, and the team certainly have. And we took that mindset towards implementing advanced agents AI. So our testing approach was very much collaborative and iterative. I can't even say that right now. We went to the support team and across our global support floor said, who's interested in working with us around this AI project? We had a lot of volunteers. So they are called internally our AI champions. And these are across every region. So we have an AI champion, at least 2 to be quite honest, in every major market that we operate in. So these champions went away and started testing Miles in the background with all of their tickets. So they were using real world examples to see if Miles was going to get to the solution that they would as well. So we went through that process, and I had set a high benchmark of 80% success rate. That's what I had set internally. That's what I wanted to see to feel comfortable. And then Miles was delivering 85% success rate. And I was quite surprised by that, to be quite honest. I thought 80% was quite a high bar to hit at that point. So I was quite surprised. We then, obviously, as I said, we've soft launched. It's a small but growing sample. And our soft launch is in the portal, hidden behind a login. Like, you have to be logged into the Zendesk portal to access Miles. But it's been successful, higher than I expected. Our agents, our AI champions, they continue to monitor these conversations every minute of every day. They are actively monitoring Miles conversations. They are offering feedback. They are grading those conversations. It was very important that, part of that continuous improvement, we make sure that Miles is also meeting our brand standards, the tone of the conversation. Did this interaction meet the expectations we would set on an agent interaction with a client? And I have to say, some of the limited interactions I've had with customers that are using Miles right now is they're surprised by the clarity that Miles offers them. There's still some workflows that need refinement. The knowledge base continues to be identified as areas for improvement in terms of the narrative or the context, which needs some uplift, which is great. But we're really, we're learning daily from real usage. And this foundation is critical to our AI success long term. So it's been a very, very positive experience and something that I'm very proud to be a part of.
Yeah, fantastic. I love the fact that you involved your agents and team members early. So you got them to actually test it, give you feedback, make sure that it was on brand, make sure that, the responses were providing, essentially resolutions to the questions. I think that is a fantastic idea, just from a change point of view, and getting your agents to really understand how this thing works, and it really is underpinned by your knowledge and IP that is hosted in that knowledge base.
I think it was enlightening for the agents as well. You spoke about that fear that AI is going to take away our jobs. There's a real realization right now that, especially amongst the support team with these champions in play, that the AI is only as strong as the documentation, the knowledge, the processes, and the people behind it. Okay, so the requirement for people to still play a fundamental part in these operations is a message that's well and truly received amongst our organization at this point.
Yeah, and I think some of your team members are actually sort of picking up other roles now because of the knowledge. Knowledge is so important, and there will be sort of that continual improvement, the ongoing. There will be more sophistication to come, I think, in terms of that capability as we go on that journey. So we had a question around guardrails, and you kind of answered it, but tell us a little bit more about, that there's a concern that, that the bot could go off and, start spurting some sort of narrative that's totally off brand. Any sort of comments around sort of just testing for guardrails and making sure that it did deliver to the brand?
I think I need to just add a little caveat to the end of that question. Like, we tried to go out of our way to break Miles in many different avenues, and actually, that natural language model comes in very handy. And Miles was never dissuaded from engaging with us, to the point where sometimes he would respond with, that's a wonderful comment, but it has nothing to do with RMS. Let me know how I can help you with RMS, which is fantastic to see. But in terms of the guardrails, it was always around the accuracy of responses. That was the paramount fundamental issue. I do not want any of our clients to have a real negative experience from this engagement. Ensuring that our brand was represented consistently. Tone is fundamentally, what we need to make sure is consistent. Our people are great. We want our channels to be great. 80% solution rate. I hit on that. That was the goal. That was really the goal. Rapid first response times, controlled escalation. So making sure we were controlling the escalation. I didn't want people in an endless loop asking Miles questions, trying to get where they needed to go to. And sustaining customer satisfaction. So ensuring that our BSAT or bot satisfaction was very similar to our customer satisfaction. All of that sort of safeguarded our user experience and ensure that we built trust in Miles as an AI system that was relevant to our users' needs.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, awesome. So now that the advanced AI agents is in the production environment, what's next for RMS Cloud?
We're obviously going to open up Miles to more interactions. That will be the first step. Long-term vision is help where you need it. Okay, so within our application, within our portals, embedding these areas of Miles to fundamentally funnel your queries. I have a vision that eventually, you don't query our help center. You will ask Miles and he presents the articles that you need or whatever you want. So Miles becomes the focal point rather than the portal or the knowledge base. That is ideally where we'd like to end. And then opening up the communication channels to more than just email and portal ticket submission, asynchronous messaging, chat. Phones is the next big hurdle that we want to get across. Everyone understands that phones is, time consuming, expensive, and there's avenues here to alleviate a lot of the frustrations that we have as support agents when we're pulled away from important issues to handle phone calls as well.
Yeah, and that's where AI is going to next, isn't it? So just that those capabilities are getting better and better. So that's a really exciting space. Fantastic stuff. All right, so we're on this journey, been on this journey together, Garth. What sort of just sort of finalizing, and we are sort of running out of time. We could talk all day, I think, Garth,
We
about this
do.
stuff. And you've mentioned sort of, telephony and some other capabilities. There's some really good announcements coming out in May on additional capability around AI on this platform. What are you most excited about and most cautious as you scale and improve further?
I think the best phrase I can use is the AI that we utilize today is probably the worst AI we're going to have an experience with. So I think, AI reaching into those new channels, those new communication pathways, the experience you can offer your consumers or your clients is fascinating. And I've certainly got some thoughts around where else it could go. Quality assurance is fundamental. Also QA and ensuring that the tone, the benchmark, the experience you want to offer is consistent. AI can play a big part with that. I've got to stress that our experience and what our clients experience comes down to our agent experience, the tone they deliver, the knowledge they have, the empathy that they provide. So that will have to be something that fundamentally forms a part of our AI experience. Empathy is a huge component of that, understanding when to escalate something, when to de-escalate a situation. And that all plays a part in a positive user experience. I think culturally, having our team embrace what's going on, focused on evolving the AI experience, our customer experience, the way we handle support tickets, and just continually raising the bar. I think that's the exciting part for me. We don't know where the end game is. I have a vision for that, and I'm very excited to take myself, SuccessCX, and everyone else and my team on that journey to see where we end up over the next 2 to 4 years. It's certainly, for me, it's not about stopping where we're at and delivering and just maintaining. It's continually improving and adding to what we can to ensure that we have the best experience for our clients.
Yeah, no, and AI really is redefining what that experience is, isn't it? Like, if I think about, the way that we used to search for content, a little bit like the knowledge base, you have to read through articles, you have to read through web pages, and now when you ask AI, most times, if you're using Copilot, Gemini, and those sorts of things, most times you get a really good response, particularly around sort of those technical sort of queries, and it just saves so much time. So for a customer to be able to have a chat with the bot to find the specific in context information for that customer, it really is sort of driving that fast and good experience as well, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think, personalization at scale, giving a unique experience at scale is where AI is really going to make a difference in terms of that, understanding who the persona of that person is, understanding the vertical they come from, understanding how they like to interact with AI or agents or phone. And once that forms a part of the data set behind it, you can offer some really amazing experiences utilizing AI before it even touches the human element.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, I think, just one question left. And just based on, those experiences and that journey that you've been on, Garth, is there a piece of advice that you could give the audience here about, some of the things that you've learned along the way?
My biggest one is don't aim for perfect. My first attempt at AI was it had to be perfect. It had to offer the perfect experience. And, I overthought every avenue and overcooked many different things. I did not want any of our end users or clients going to miles and having a negative experience and then shutting down, never coming back again. Focusing on low complexity, high volume usage in cases and having that data to support that will guide you on the best experience you can offer. So building that strong foundation with clean data, supporting a knowledge management sort of institution, having a partner that's an expert in these areas is kind of critical as well. That was important for me. The results we're seeing is not indicative of where we thought we'd be with the the tools we had behind us. So I'm quite surprised. And I was hesitant to go live without having a perfect knowledge base, without having the workflows designed. But until you really see Miles in action, you don't truly understand where you need to focus on what you need to do. So without losing the message here, focus on your low complexity, high volume usage, build what you can in terms of knowledge to support those areas. Miles as a generative AI will do a lot of the work in that space, and you'll be amazed, to be quite honest. And then adding to that, it's always continuous improvement and a very customer-centric mindset. You've got to look at AI as being an agent for you and your organization, and the experience your AI bot offers your end users has to be what you'd expect from a person at the end of a phone call or at the end of a ticket or form or chat. That's very important in terms of AI adoption as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think just that, the journey of continual improvement is super important. Implementing those processes that continually are reviewing, analyzing the data, looking at, maybe where those gaps are and continually plugging those gaps, building out the capabilities is all part of that journey. And then the generative moves into, I think integrations with platforms and things like that. So the sophistication can be built as you sort of can cherry pick, as you said, the low hanging fruit and moving into that more sophistication.
Yeah, when you start offering AI a little bit more context around the person speaking to them, the intent of it, that's where those more complex issues start to get solved as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Garth, for sitting with us today.
No, thank you, Paul.
Look, I really appreciate your time. It's been absolutely fantastic working with you and your team, and just love what you're doing out there. So thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Sorry, Garth.
I was going to say I appreciate you and the team at SuccessCX and everything we've done, and obviously with Zendesk as well.
Thanks, Garth. Now I'm going to hand it back to Eileen. So thanks everyone for your time. I think there's some questions possibly being posed.
Yes, we have a few questions, but everyone that is on the call today, feel free to post some additional questions. We have some time. My first question is, do you measure self-service success by deflection or by customer experience?
Oh, very good question. I don't think you can. Sorry, Paul, did you want to have first?
No, Garth, please have a go at that one.
Self-service has to be a measure of both, but primarily for me, it'd be customer experience. If the customer experience isn't the best possible experience they can while they're self-serving, then you're not really delivering on the self-service model you desire. I hope that answers the question.
No, I agree, Garth, and we've looked at some of those conversations and things like where we were offering, how was the experience? We found we were asking that too quickly and just making it more that as an example, but just sort of, as we've been on that journey, we've been sort of, looking to improve those experiences as we see things happen and just making it as natural as possible. So I think absolutely agree that the customer experience is so important.
Yeah, you hit on a good point, because within a week we realized that we wanted to build in a workflow or a process where we qualified that the answer we provided was correct and the client was happy. And then we wanted to, measure their satisfaction in terms of that journey as well. So there was 2 steps in what we implemented, and that's been successful as well and guided us to a few different areas that we're doing very well in and a few different areas where we can improve as well.
And can I just add, if a customer has a bad experience, let's say with Miles, then that's a failure, because the likelihood is that they're not going to engage with Miles again if they're not happy with it. Go straight to the agent. So we absolutely want to give that the best experience possible.
Excellent. Well, that leads us into our second question, and I think this is directed to you, Garth. How consistent is your customer experience across regions or teams today?
It is vastly improved from what it was 3 months ago. It's still not where we would want it to be. But in saying that, I think it is more consistent across our global footprint. If you ask the same question of anyone at any time in the day, you're generally going to get the same sort of response or answer or follow-up. The differential would be on how we engage with those clients based on the region. Some of our specific clients in different areas prefer to communicate via email and do not want a phone call. The inverse applies for different regions, and picking up on those differences, it's very important to follow up on. And we are building processes around that right now as we speak, to be quite honest.
Excellent. That kind of leads into the next question of what would AI success look like in your organization, let's say from a year from now?
Multi-part answer. Miles, our AI tool, being the fundamental focal point for all product-related questions, actually all organizational related questions from our clients or end users. It's not just support. It's you've got a billing information, Miles should be able to answer that. You get updates on product roadmap, all of those areas. AI for us as an organization is more than just the support experience as well. But in terms of my department of my organization, high satisfaction, a tier 2 model in terms of the support operations that focus more on complex issues, and proactive engagement. So more about product uplift, adoption, being aware of the issues before our clients are, and getting ahead of them and addressing those problems as we go. And that's where I'd really like to get our support team to, that proactive engagement space where we're ahead of the issues and where you can identify certain areas for uplift within the product. AI will play a big part in guiding those administrative requirements as well.
Excellent. You mentioned this question, you mentioned kind of in the last, kind of your tips for our audience. Now, if we go a little deeper, do you have visibility today into where AI could make the most or the biggest impact within someone's organization?
Again, I'm taking this from a support perspective, but AI can make a lot of different impacts in a lot of different areas within your organization. But as it relates to Zendesk and end user experience, it is for us that shift away from support tickets being the first point of contact. It's 85% of our ticket volume is effectively how-to questions, and minimizing and reducing that volume substantially frees your team up to focus on more critical areas. I don't think there's an organization out there, well, every organization has its own issues, but I think knowledge and knowledge management continue to play a part in most issues when we talk at a CX level, CX leadership level. So allowing your agents to power the knowledge behind those how-to answers and making sure we're framing those answers in the right way that it's well received by clients when they read an article, rather than read an article, I still don't know what I'm doing, I'm going to call support. That changes the dynamic greatly. So to answer your question, the how-to questions need to be solved as much as possible in your K-base and in your AI interactions. And your agents need to continually be focused on those how-to questions being solved at that point of contact. Now, I'm not saying it all has to be written in Word, but there's a lot of different usages in terms of media and what we can do. I've had clients recently submit Loom recordings and how-tos in tickets, and that's a fantastic way to start communicating and talking. And there's benefits in looking at those different avenues as well.
Excellent. The questions keep rolling in, which is great. One of the other questions were, how involved were your agents in your AI rollout, observers or co-creators?
Both, to be quite honest. Observers initially. Okay, so there was 1 week of observations that we undertook, managing the conversations. We had a scorecard laid out. Our scorecard measured intent, success rate, whether it was escalated. If it failed, what was the reason for failure? And we had many failure reasons. Did it match the tone that we'd expect from written communications from clients? Did it match, our brand expectations? Did we say it would meet our end user expectations? So this scorecard formed a data set behind which we made informed decisions. And when we started seeing our failure rates around different areas, our agents then went away to close those failure gaps. And that initially started with knowledge gaps and knowledge-based article uplift. And now we have a few agents that actually worked with SuccessCX to build out their own workflows within the AI chatbot as well. So some of them took it upon themselves to start playing and building out workflows. If I get this type of question with this type of intent, and I'm going to ask a yes or no answer, what happens with yes, what happens with no? So natural evolution, they turn from observers to co-creators as well. And they will continue to play that part moving forward.
Excellent. We have time for one last question. What is your most important metric to measure support success today, and any goals in the future to where you want to get?
I struggle with the most one important success measure. I don't think you can look at a support operation and your experience that you offer your end users and go, we're doing really well if it's this one measure. You can have a 96% customer satisfaction rate, but if your resolution time across the board is, 3 to 4 days and your clients are expecting that, it doesn't take long for, observations of different competitors in different markets, but places start to realize a few different things can change fundamentally and shift client sentiment in that regard. For me, client satisfaction plays a big part in terms of every experience that we offer them. But in terms of client satisfaction, it's, we want to make sure our reopen rates are low. If our reopen rates are high, then we're not delivering the right solution or we're not understanding our clients. We also want to make sure that our backlog remains low and our response times and our resolution times are consistent. So we're always looking to improve upon those 3 areas. If you look on those 3 areas, your customer satisfaction rating is a byproduct of your efforts in those other areas. And then obviously making sure that's consistent in terms of response times and our KPIs across the globe and across all of our different teams and team members is fundamentally critical as well. I could go into more there, but I'm happy. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I could speak for days around different areas around customer experience and customer support. There was a second part to that one. I don't know if I answered it or not. Sorry, Marlene.
That's okay. We're almost at time, and so
Okay.
any other questions, we'll be able to share that with the audience either via email. So thank you so much, everyone, for your questions. Thank you, Garth and Paul, for sharing your time and your insights with us. It's been great hearing how RMS Cloud is approaching customer experience transformation in such a practical and thoughtful way. Thank you to all of those who joined today's sessions and asked questions in the chat. We'll follow up with the recording as well as with any unanswered questions. If you'd like to continue the conversation or learn more about Zendesk and some of our partners like SuccessCX and how that we can support your CX and your AI transformation, feel free to reach out to us using the QR codes that you can see on your screen. As you can see that there. And if you're a Zendesk customer and have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to your account lead. Thank you again for joining us and have a wonderful rest of day. Take care, everyone.
Thanks so much.
So we have a lot of conversations with customers and prospective customers around trying to get an understanding of whether and how will they know whether they're AI ready. And I think a lot of those conversations primarily talk about the technical. And I guess when we talk about AI in customer experience, one of the biggest misconceptions we still see is that this is primarily a technology conversation. In reality, success is broader than that. It's about whether your organization is set up end to end to support and sustain it, essentially. So what we've found is that there are a few core areas that consistently determine whether AI delivers value and whether it ends up amplifying existing challenges. Now, it here is that I don't think organizations are ever going to be 100% ready. Your contact centers are moving, changing, evolving over time. So it will impact where you're at with some of these levers. But I guess the point of this little session is just to kind of talk about what areas you should be focused on and what are some of the key things you should be thinking about in relation to this information. So the first area that we kind of want to talk to is around the customer journey and the insights. And at a foundational level, this is about having a clear understanding of your end-to-end customer journey. What are your key touch points and what is actually driving demand into your contact center? Because AI is only as effective as the problem it's trying to solve, essentially. So if you don't have visibility of why customers are contacting you. What are their root causes? What are their pain points? What are the moments that matter within that customer journey? Then the AI just tends to optimize at a superficial level, essentially. So sure, it might make interactions faster, but it won't necessarily make them better. So what we often see is less mature environments is AI being deployed in a fragmented way or where they poorly understand experiences. That is where there is disconnect around what the AI is capable of doing and causing frustrating interactions with the customer. So the goal around this particular pillar is around identifying and solving the right problems in the right part of the journey. The second dimension here is specifically around knowledge management, and this one is super critical and is the one that is probably the most underestimated of most of these pillars. And that is because AI is fundamentally relies on a single trusted, accurate source of knowledge that it can draw on, and specifically for generative responses. So if your knowledge is inconsistent, if it's outdated, if it's fragmented in any way, AI and the responses that it will generate will reflect that. So you'll see inconsistent answers, you'll have lower confidence internally in the responses that you're getting, you're going to see higher escalation rates, and ultimately trust will drop like a stone. So on the flip side, where your knowledge is well structured, there's some really effective governance in place, and there's some processes around continuous maintenance, your AI becomes significantly more powerful, and not just for customers, but also for your agents as well. So what you're really looking to ask here is, do we have a reliable source of truth that can scale and is accurate? And does it offer some consistency in terms of the responses that we can provide across every interaction that is coming in? The third pillar I kind of want to focus on is around operational maturity. And this is about how well your processes, your workflows, your performance management are defined and embedded. So AI works best when processes are clearly understood and defined, they're measured, and they're continually improved, right? If your operations aren't well governed, or if your workflows are inconsistent, metrics aren't defined, or performance isn't really managed that well, then you're essentially laying AI on top on some really poor foundations. So you might see pockets of improvement, but it's difficult to scale or sustain that, let alone measure properly. So operational maturity allows you to track the impact of AI, optimize it over time, and integrate it into your overarching or broader service model. So the question here then becomes is, do we have the operational foundations to measure, govern, and continuously improve the performance of the AI? People and change is essentially the difference between AI working quite well versus AI working like an absolute disaster. And it's that difference between, hey, here's the theory of what we want to introduce into organization of AI. Here's the concept of AI versus here's what's actually happening on the ground with our frontline team. So AI cannot operate in isolation as it changes how your team works day to day. So your team needs to trust it. As leaders, you need to understand how to manage it and how to talk to it. And all levels within the organization need to be aligned in terms of what good looks like in an AI-enabled environment, essentially. Without that alignment and without the necessary enablement for skills, knowledge, you're going to just have really low adoption rates. You're going to have inconsistent utilization, and you're just going to straight up miss value in the technology that is going to be delivered. So organizations that can actually invest in change management, effectively change management within all levels, whether that be training, communication, clear expectation setting, alignment with senior leaders, alignment with C-suite, they have much stronger outcomes because AI is embedded in the conversations and how you work day to day. So what you're asking yourself here as a leader is, are my people, or is the people and organization enabled sufficiently? Are we aligned? And is there sufficient support to adopt AI as part of what we do day to day? And then the final pillar that we're talking to is around the core platform. So specifically in our instance, we're talking about Zendesk here. So this is your technical foundation. This is all about your systems. This is about your integrations, your data structures, and your platform governance. AI needs a basis that is scalable, it needs to be well configured, and it needs to be well governed, right? As you have potentially heard from a lot of people, like where a lot of the AI products right now are not set and forget. You need to evolve that. So we're seeing that play out in a lot of organizations where roles are evolving. So where you may see a reduction in frontline headcount that is being transitioned to actually supporting AI as a product internally. So if your platform is overly complex, if it's poorly structured, or if it's lacking any real type of governance, AI will amplify those problems. If you see inconsistent performance or data quality challenges or limitations in how far you can actually push AI capabilities, if there is misalignment in any of that. So whereas if you have a strong platform, you have strong governance in relation to how you're managing your platform, if there are operational reliability, if you work well with your technology stakeholders to maintain your integrations and things like that, you will deliver better and more consistent outcomes. So what you are thinking of to yourself here as a leader is specifically around, do we have a platform foundation, whether that be Zendesk, whether that be potentially something else, but do we have a platform foundation that can actually support AI and will let us scale over time? So what that then looks like in terms of bringing all this together is what we would typically say is, like, when you are bringing all of these dimensions together, the key message is going to be like, AI does not exist in isolation. It cannot be implemented in isolation. It sits on top of all these key pillars that we're talking to here. And if any one of these are weak in some extended point, AI will not fix it. AI will actually make it worse. It'll amplify it. So that's where we just want to reinforce that when organizations are looking at adopting AI, yes, you don't need to be perfect, but you need to also take a bit more of a holistic view of where your readiness is. Introducing the product will not fix your problem. It'll potentially exacerbate it if you're not focusing on every single one of these areas to kind of drive it. They don't all need to be at 100. You need to be working towards each one of these to help mature it. So the closing kind of point is, so asking, instead of necessarily asking, are we ready for AI? You want to ask the questions that are outlined here in each one of these pillars, because AI value is essentially going to be realized across all of these dimensions, not just specifically within the technology on its own. In our role in consulting, we work with a lot of organizations on obviously introducing AI into their customer experience operations. And what's clear is that the evolving technical landscape, leaders are starting to wrap their heads around that a lot more than ever has been in the past. But where organizations are still facing challenges, however, is in clearly articulating where AI is driving impact and how to effectively tell that story within the business. So critical starting point is defining the core value dimensions you want to focus on. So that gives a clear lens for measuring and shaping the narrative around AI performance. In practice, this then means evolving your metrics framework. And we've talked about this in the past, where it's shifting obviously through to tracking overall outcomes, but also introducing this concept or distinction around what is the differentiation between human performance and AI performance to better understand where value is being created. So there's many ways to approach this, but particularly for organizations early in their journey, I would typically recommend to keep things simple and focused, starting with a small number of clear outcome-driven pillars. And the three that I'll introduce you today should help kind of drive that narrative internally. Now, as with anything, there's multiple ways to kind of cut this cake, but I think in terms of a starting point, particularly early on, these are pretty solid for a lot of organizations to kind of start to adopt. So the first pillar specifically being scale. Now, the general idea here is around expansion of service capacity and coverage without that increase in resource or headcount. So the value story here being that you are handling growth without hiring or the need to hire. So what does that change then look like? And how is AI now resolving a meaningful proportion of sort of your low complexity demand that is coming through? And how are agents adding additional value to the contacts that might be more higher in emotional cachet or that are higher urgency? What does that then look like from a human agent perspective? The value story there is around you're now available 24/7. So for those organizations that are historically Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, which a lot of SMB or mid-market organizations are, with the introduction, you're now managing a lot of contact outside of hours. And what does that demand reduction look like now? What do your backlogs look like now? So these are key things that you can then start to talk to the business about. So the metrics and the signals that you're kind of wanting to then keep across are things like your automation rates, your deflection rates. What does your ticket versus headcount growth now look like as well? So the other pillar here is specifically around efficiency, and that is then obviously talking about the reduction in time and effort and cost required to deliver the support that you're now providing. And the value story is around resolutions with Copilot. One of those key things around AI is that it's obviously not only customer focused, there's also an agent experience aspect of that. And that is when you're now introducing things like Agent Copilot. So what does that now look like in terms of agent managing the contacts that are coming through? How are they utilizing the tooling? What is the shift in quality metrics, which we'll kind of get to with the introduction of these efficiency? And then the other value story that is super critical that we talk to a lot of organizations specifically about as well is just around their cost to serve. So by automating these repetitive tasks and streamlining your workflow, how have you reduced the cost to serve a customer? And what has that then meant for your service levels? So the metrics specifically that we're talking about here are not number one, but one of the key ones here is going to be your cost per ticket or your cost per serve. What does that then look like from an agent adoption rate from, say, a Copilot perspective? How has that then impacted their average handling time? How has that then impacted the first reply time? How quickly are now agents able to move through by being enabled with tooling at their hands? And how much less time is a customer waiting now that there are agents are in the loop, but it's more AI led now with the inquiries as they kind of come through. Now, from a quality perspective, you're obviously looking at that consistency aspect of it, that repeatability aspect of it, and what that then looks like from the overall customer experience, and how are you using that information to then drive improvements for customer outcomes. So the story you're being able to tell, or a couple of examples there, is just in terms of consistency and the trust in responses. What does that look like in terms of better outcomes for customers through CSAT, through first contact resolution? How many ticket touches is it now taking for a ticket to be resolved? General things like quality assurance score. If you're not doing quality right now, you should be considering that now that you're considering bringing in AI agents, particularly when you are giving these agents agency to pull information that you've got internally. It's obviously if the information is there and it's not serving up that information correctly, how are you checking that? How will you know that there's a problem other than being responsive to something going wrong? So this is where your key signals like your CSAT, these are your key signals like BSAT, introducing a bot satisfaction score, reviewing what your general QA scores look like, reviewing what ticket reopen rates look like. That kind of then starts to build out a bit of a narrative in terms of the quality of the interactions that are being managed by the bot and how they then get managed in escalation through to an agent as well. There's a few other dimensions that you can look to consider. I'm not going to run through them all, but like you might want to expand out into sort of an understanding around insights and insights and intelligence. So things like, how is the data that you're generating being driven into continuous improvement, or things that your operations can start to execute on? So general things like, if there are specific types of repeat contact, how has that repeat contact reduced? What
does a customer effort score look like? What were the top contact drivers? Now, obviously, there's some seasonality and stuff in there as well, but how did they shift in terms of reduction specifically? What you're trying to do here is convey specific types of customer interactions that you're receiving, and how do you then divert them into things like actionable insights to drive actual change within your operations as well?